Greetings. I am known as Dr. John Taylor Kent. I'm bringing you this particular video today to answer the question, why white supremacists? The real question is, why are white supremacists so dangerous, or why are they perceived as being so dangerous? Or perhaps a better way to frame the question is, why does the government of the United States of America keep harping about white supremacists? I'm going to do my best to answer that during this video. I have no idea what rabbit holes I might go down and what I'm going to bring up. I believe that the reason they want to go after white supremacists is because we're not white supremacists. We're Israelites. We are the real Israelites, the real people descended from the 10 lost tribes of Israel, if you will. Mind you, they never were lost to Yahweh, the Creator Father. He never lost track of us. We lost track of ourselves. Part of our sentence was going to be amnesia. We were going to forget who we were, our roots, and forget even that we were called after our father Israel, and instead be called after his father Isaac. So we are the Saxons, Isaac's sons. It's the same reason why they targeted Germany. Germany was not Nazi. Germany was not full of white supremacists. Germany was full of the tribe of Judah. And Judah was supposed to have the scepter, have the rule, until the return of the Messiah, until the return of Shiloh. And so what we have is we have the devil's children. The devil and his children literally own this planet right now as I speak. They own and run the place. They've got the title to all of us. They've done it through a system and a series of frauds. Now, when the United States of America was founded, our founders knew who we were. They knew who they were. They read their Bibles and they knew that they were Israelites. Matter of fact, when George Washington passed away, I believe it was written that a great man in Israel has passed away. So our founders knew who we were. At this particular point, we have been made out to be the bad guys. And the real bad guys have done the biggest identity fraud in history. They're pretending to be the chosen people, the chosen ones. Now, we are the peculiar, particular people. And I, after reading the Bible for 15 or so years, have come to the conclusion that we are members of the servant race, not the supremacist race. If you want to know about supremacy, then turn to the Jews. They'll tell you that they're the supreme race, and they try to lord it over the rest of us. And I realize that that's a significant portion of the Jews, not every one of them. What I want you to understand is that there's a bunch of Nazis on the planet, and they really aren't white supremacists. You take a look at that President Zelensky, who's president of the Ukraine. He's Jewish, no big deal. The most powerful oligarch, or the richest oligarch in the Ukraine, I don't know his name, is Jewish as well. And he's the fellow that funded the Azov Brigade. You know, the white supremacy guys, the white nationalists in the Ukraine. That's why it's so weird. Now, here's what you don't realize. So I'll ask the question. I'll ask the questions. Why are we called Caucasians? That's question number one. Another question. Who won World War II? Question number two. This is going to be a memory test for Dr. Kent here. And I do have a third question, and it slipped my mind right away. So what? I know I'll cover it during the course of this dialogue with you. We're called Caucasians after the Caucasus Mountain range. However, in most of these white countries today, they don't want you to think of yourselves as being Caucasoids, Caucasians. Instead, they want you to think of yourselves as being white. Why is that? That's because they don't want you to ask the simple question of, how do we come to be called Caucasians? Well, we're named after the Caucasus Mountain range. And generally speaking, our ancestors bolted across the Caucasus Mountains in 3 giant waves in approximately 622 BC. And if you look to the Bible, you'll find out that that was when the northern 10 tribes of Israel were taken into captivity by the Assyrians. Depends upon which accounting and study you read or how you read the Bible, which is the best way to go, is to read it for yourself. There were 3 or 4 incursions into the northern tribes of Israel, the northern 10 tribes. And the last one of those, they went into the southern tribes as well. So, we're named after the Caucasus Mountain range. Now, the reason they don't want us to ask, or to discover why we are called Caucasians is because then the next step in logic is, where did we come from before that? Where did we come from before we crossed the Caucasus Mountains? Well, we came from the northern tribes of Israel, and they do not want us knowing that. And the purpose of the channel, Awakening Israel, is to awaken my brothers and my sisters in Israel. According to Pastor Jerry Wicke, that was the most important thing we could do. Now, I'm going to tell you that half of you are going to get wiped out. That's what's written in the Bible. There's going to be something like a third killed pretty directly outright, and then another third of that comes down to about 45, 48, 42, 50% of us left. Why are they going after us? Because the devils want to keep this world. They don't want to give it up. And people are waking up, and they're now wondering, why do we have to live in this constant war-like state? Why are we cursed this way? Why is gasoline so expensive? Why is food going to become very scarce? It's all written in the big book, or I should say the big library of books known as the Bible. So, you and I, because the odds are, if you found my channel, you're curious, and you're probably more likely to be a Caucasian, more likely to be a descendant of the original 10 tribes of Israel, or even the original 14 tribes. Yes, if you read the Bible carefully enough, you will know that there are 14 different tribes, not 12. Read it for yourself. Don't take my word for it. I do sell the best Bible, the latest version of the Bible. However, what happened to us is the enemy decided in its long-range planning, multi-generational warfare here, that they needed to give us a different Bible, because they knew that as long as we were Bible readers and we could read it for ourselves, they couldn't take us captive. And we are captive. We may not have been deported yet, but we are deported in a certain sense, in that they've superimposed a new jurisdiction upon us. We no longer live under common law. We no longer live under constitutional law. All of that's been destroyed. There is no republic. There hasn't been a republic for a long time, and even the democracy is gone at this point. It's a two-tiered system. Either members of the party, the Communist Party, otherwise known as Democrat Party, and you can get away with murder, pretty much, or you are held to the higher standard of outrageous demands in terms of ethics, morals, and laws, and law-abiding and compliance. Why do they want to do this? Well, they know that we are the only group that's capable of taking them out. And they've read the Bible. And they know what the Bible says. The Bible says we will take them out. I have no doubt about that. Will I get to see it? I might. That'd be really nice. But it also is going to be kind of sad, because that means I get to see all this other crap that's going down. George Washington had a dream for the United States of America. He had an angel visit him several nights in a row. And this was written down well after his death. So I've always questioned it. I'm not sure of the source. I'm not sure that this is trustworthy. And since the enemy is so wily, so shrewd, so intelligent, and so able to set up rabbit trails for us all, to lead us astray, and so good at deceiving, that I wonder about this, but it's coming true. George Washington was shown our Civil War, that a black cloud would rise up off the continent of Africa, drift across the ocean, across the Atlantic Ocean, settle on North America, and we would be fighting in that cloud that descended upon the North American continent. So that is how he saw the coming of the Civil War. He also had another vision, another visitation, and the angel showed him World War I. And then the angel showed him World War II. And then there was another one. And in this one, I don't have a good source. I have to rely upon second, third-hand reports on the internet. And this is worth researching, but I just don't have time to research everything. And I'd rather spend my time reading the Bible than researching stuff like this. But some of you out there are going to find this important. In the final battle, George Washington saw red clouds rising off every continent on the face of the earth and drifting, converging all from around the planet on North America and settling on the ground here. And that we would fight in this red cloud of people from all over the planet. The communist invasion, or the invasion of Esau, or the devil and his children. Whichever perspective works for you, go with it. George Washington says that it's going to be a tough battle, and he says we survive it and we become stronger. I'm not liking the odds, and I'm not liking what I see right now, because most of you are asleep. You aren't awoken to the threat. You don't realize what's here right now. Those clouds have already come here. They've already drifted here. The enemy is inside the gates, and the enemy's in the positions of power in our FBI, in our CIA, in our ATF, in our courts, in our State Department, which is riddled with communists and has been running the communist show for a long time. The communists on Manhattan and the high-rises, and the communists that run our banking system. So you want to call it a Federal Reserve, and I can tell you it's not federal, and there are no reserves. The stock is not on the open market. It can't be bought or sold. It's kept around a tight-knit group of people. So rather than calling it the Federal Reserve, we should really call it what it is. It's the Rothschild Reserve. It's their slave system. And they, as far as I can tell, are descendants of the Pharaohs, descendants of the devil's children through Esau, Edom. So I need you to wake up, because you're going to have to fight for your lives. And the sooner we begin to fight, the better. And our fight has to be civil. And the best thing you can do is sit on your butt and read the Bible and exercise daily and get in good shape, because conditioning is your best self-defense. Now let me link up these pieces for you somewhat. I don't have all of the pieces to this puzzle, but I'll give you what you really need to know. There were 200 fallen angels, and one of them was named Gadriel. And Gadriel is the name of the fallen angel that seduced Eve, impregnated Eve, and fathered Cain. And Cain, in turn, was kicked out of the Garden of Eden, went east to the land of wanderers, where he took wives from the Mongolians over there. And they migrated to the Promised Land and settled the Promised Land. So what you had in the Promised Land was a group of people that were fathered by Gadriel, by a fallen angel. So they had fallen angelic DNA in them, literal fallen angelic DNA. Now, for you people who would prefer it, think of them as aliens, okay? I think that fits as well. And the problem is the Bible only tells us a story about one fallen angel. There's 199 more. So if you think you can identify them, or if you can just go after one group and finger them all, you can't. I can't do it. And I've tried. What I can tell you is that Esau took 2 Canaanite women to wife and had children by them. He had already sold his inheritance for a bowl of red porridge. Red was Edom rather. And Esau's name was changed to Edom for red. And when you think of these political parties, the real party colors are the red for the Democrats, for the communist Democrats, and blue for the blue blood Republicans. Okay? I don't like either group. I'm an equal opportunity hater. I don't like either of them. And George Washington warned us against the party system. What we do instead of it, I don't care. I just know we have to get rid of the party system. I think maybe forcing those guys to work together like they first had to would be a good idea. Number 1 in votes becomes president. Number 2 became vice president. Makes it kind of awkward in a way. But then again, I'd like to see the entire Democratic Party made illegal. Because there's enough jackasses and weirdos in the Republican Party that we could have several parties made up of those guys and would still have problems to deal with. By the way, both parties are controlled by what you call Israel, that little postage stamp of a country in the Middle East. I don't regard it as legally founded. It was founded by a bunch of terrorists. It really should have been called Rothschild Land, and the Rothschilds bought that place. Yet, it exists. Yahweh may have had a hand in that. That's way above my pay grade, okay? Way beyond my ability to even conceive, think, or do anything about it. And once you get me going there, I might sort it out, but we're not going there today. So you and I are Caucasians. We're also Israelites. And in case you're wondering, Jesus, whom I call Yeshua, since that's what his real name was, the Messiah, which is the proper term in this new Bible, and Christ is mentioned in there too. I haven't spent enough time in this new Bible yet. I haven't had enough time, and I'm looking forward to it because it's very enlightening. It's a much better copy than the old one that my ancestor gave you. My ancestor oversaw the 1611 King James publication. You got to read the Bible. Buy my Bible. It's the best copy you're going to get. It's modern English. It's a far better translation, far more true to the original than even the King James was. The worst copy you can get is Schofield Reference Study Bible was written by a group of rabbis. Now, the Jewish people as a whole were okay, and in Germany they were okay too. They were fine citizens, and they didn't want to leave. But what ended up happening was that there was an amalgam formed because Adolf Hitler's National Socialist Party wasn't getting off the ground very well, and another group approached him to form a partnership, an amalgam, and those were the Zionists. Okay? So the Zionist International and the National Socialist Party got together, and that's who put Hitler in power. We're Jews. Zionist Jews, though, not mainstream Jews. It's very important you know the difference. And so the word Nazi, N-A-Z-I, stands for, this is according to Eustace Mullins, and this makes sense, NA stood for the National Socialist Party that Adolf Hitler started. The ZI on the back end stands for Zionist International, spelled with an E on the end of International. So the two formed a very unholy alliance. And in case you're wondering, the book to read is Edwin Black. He's a Jewish gentleman. This was his best book. He spent his life savings, at the time $5,000, footing the bill. His parents did not approve of him writing this book. He told them before he wrote it what he was going to write. And he gave us a wonderful accounting of two different groups of Jewish people who were trying to represent the Jewish interest. And unfortunately, the ones that were the bad guys, and if you read the book, you'll realize who the bad guys are, and you'll realize why they are bad. They murdered the good ones. Not only that, they rounded up the good ones and put them in the concentration camps, and the bad ones ran the concentration camps. By the way, the number one example of that is George Soros. George A. Schwartz or something. Black, I think, was his original name. But he said that the happiest times of his life was when he was working with the Nazis, rounding up the Jews, turning them in, and confiscating their property. What a weird, twisted dude. That's because he's a descendant of Esau. He's an Edomite. Now, who were the Edomites? They settled in Mount Seir. And the Edomites had a different kind of culture. The Israelites had a patriarchy. The Edomites had a matriarchy. The Israelites were required, they could only have one of their brothers be king over them. They couldn't have a foreigner be brother over them. But the Edomites didn't trust each other. They distrusted each other so much. Their law was you couldn't have one of their own people be king. It had to be an outsider. And their lineage went by their mothers, like modern Judaism does today. There was a war in about 148 BC, lasted for approximately 5 years. It was the Maccabean Revolt. And during that, John Hyrcanus won. After 5 years of struggling, he beat the crap out of the Edomites in particular. And he told the Edomites, either get circumcised, really painful thing, for an adult especially, convert and worship the true God, or I'm going to put you to death. So he made them an offer they could not refuse. It was not wise thinking, in my opinion, at this late date, because what that did is that mainstreamed in the line of Esau, Edom, in with the Israelites whole. And what we find is that about 145 years later, we find Herod the Great in the Bible as an Idumean. Now, what is an Idumean? Good question. Idumean is the Greek word for Edomite. So Herod the Great was an Edomite, which is why he could kill all those 2-year-old babies. All the 2-year-old male babies and under were slaughtered because he was worried that the real Messiah was going to take his place or upset the relationship he had with Rome that put him in power in Israel. The Edomites mingled in with the mainstream. And then we come up to 700 AD. The Bulgar, I believe that's what his title was, the chieftain, the head of Khazaria, which is where the Ukraine is today, only it was bigger, far bigger, with a really large standing army, and they loved war. The Bulgar decided he needed to make his nobles more loyal to himself, and he also needed to adopt a different religion because the Catholics and the Muslims were at war all the time, and he was caught in between. And he realized that the Jewish merchants were able to pass freely anywhere they wanted. They got along well with the Muslims, they got along well with the Catholics. So he decided he would become Jewish. And so he required his nobles, at least, to convert to Judaism. So the entire nation, 700 AD, converted to Judaism. And when the Edomites, who were still lodged at Mount Seir, hiding out, holed up in the southern part of Israel, heard about this conversion, they decided, let's go north and help these people convert to their new faith. So they migrated up, and they took that satanic DNA with them that they got from their father Gadriel, the fallen angel, one of the 5 leaders of the fallen angels. And the fallen angels conspired on Mount Hermon. Mount Hermon's in the Bible. You need to note that. It's in the New Testament one time. They gathered together at one point on Mount Hermon, and they did their big conspiracy. And what was their conspiracy? It was to go into the daughters of men because they found them fair, and they took all that they wanted for wives. Now, don't think of wife as being a formal relationship back then. It really basically meant to engage in sex with, to reproduce with. So they took all of them for wives that they wanted. They went into them, they impregnated them, and those earthly women gave birth to the men of old. So these were half fallen angelic DNA and half Adamic DNA. Now, in case you're wondering, that dark, long-haired, brown-eyed, almost swarthy skin-looking dude that they have in paintings for Jesus was not a painting of Jesus at all. It was the painting of one of the Pope's sons that he decided he wanted to make popular. So he put his son in there as a model. Now I speak as a former model. I know, right? You can't imagine me with long brown hair, long flowing locks, but I modeled for a fellow who needed a Jesus for his painting that went into the Armenian church in Boston. And he paid me quite well because he wanted me for it. He did tell me he changed the nose when I said something kind of flippant about being, Jesus in there. I assure you, though, I look completely different than I did back then. I haven't aged very well, not in my opinion. I look in the mirror and I don't see my dad. I don't say dad. I used to say grandpa, but that was like a decade ago, so I look older than my grandfathers at this point. And that's okay. My purpose in life is to awaken my brothers and sisters in Israel. That's what I'm called to do, and that's all I'm called to do. I'd like to help you save this republic, or reclaim it, but in order for that to happen, I got to have some power. And I don't want to be president. This is a horrible country at this point. Oh, and for you people that complain about money, stop complaining about money. There is no money. They stole that all a long time ago. They stole you and me. They stole the land as well. Everything. We're nothing but slaves held in place. We are in exile for the very same sins that our forefathers were put in exile for. Read the Old Testament. Read the major prophets. You'll see it mentioned twice. What they were told not to do, and they did it anyway. And as a result, they were deported. We in this country, these evil ones among us, are very shrewd, and they get us to do the same thing our forefathers did, and our grandmothers did as well, long ago. So we're guilty of the same sins, only a little bit worse, because they've turned us into Sodom and Gomorrah 2.0. And so don't be surprised if we get nuked, and we will have had it coming for what we have done. Shedding innocent blood? How many million? and we've been nothing but a bully around the planet and despotic at home? We're living in despotism right now. We don't get to even elect our presidents. And the law, we don't have the law. There is no rule of law. We can't get proper law enforcement. We can't get justice. That may be changing. I pray I live to see that. I'd like to see his return. That'd be way cool. Makes me want to cry to think about it. So, now you know why you're called Caucasian, but I got to tell you one more thing. Guess what color Jesus's, the real man's hair was? Guess what color his eyes were? They weren't brown. He was blonde. He had a golden beard. His eyes were like the sky. They were blue eyes. We have 2 eyewitnesses who gave us written accounts. And a nice Jewish historian named Josephus recorded this for us. Pontius Pilate wrote a letter to Caesar describing the man he saw. And I think we can rely upon Pontius Pilate, especially making a report to Caesar to give the right truth, the facts. So, he wasn't dark-skinned, swarthy skin. He didn't have brown eyes. I don't have blue eyes. He had blue eyes. I had brown hair. You have to take my word on that. He didn't have brown hair. Didn't have black hair. Didn't have red hair. Blonde hair. Golden hair. So, you need to realize the levels of deception that have been given and that we are under are great. There's a lot of things that we cannot agree upon. We don't even have good science anymore. There's a lot of things that we don't need to agree upon. But there's some things we have to agree upon for our very survival and for the survival of Mother Earth. I have said this before, and I will say it again. The earth groans for her saviors. That's very important. That is what I pull from the Bible when I read it. And I don't even know if it's really there, because I keep looking for it and I can't find it again. But saviors is plural in the Bible in one spot. See if you can find it. Minor prophets. They all had something major to contribute. They weren't minor because they were little guys or not important. They were minor because it was short, sweet, and to the point, and they had critical data, critical information for you and I. So, our ancestors broke across the Caucasus mountain range in 622 BC, and from there we broke into Europe. We became the Europeans, and from there we went out into the earth. So we have occupied South Africa, Chile, large parts of South America actually, Argentina, New Zealand, Australia, Canada, Russia, the Belarus. All of those countries have got Israelites in them. No more brother wars. That's what we'll be saying in the future. We got suckered into the war before by bad guys. Predominantly Zionist Jews. Now, I don't care for the rabbis. I don't care for the priests. I don't care for the preachers very much. So I'm equal opportunity hater. So don't tell me I'm just anti-Semitic. I am Semitic. How can I be against myself? A Semite is a classification based upon language, tongue. And the only reason the Jews come up with the anti-Semitic thing was so they could further their stranglehold and keep us paralyzed because we might be racist or something. Which is what they're doing at us right now, claiming we're racist, while they're busy destroying us. Yes, it's a white genocide. They get us to miscegenate, to racially intermix. We're not supposed to be doing that. It's very clear in the Bible. God loved his entire creation the way he made it, including those black folks. Okay? Every time he made part of this thing, including the Asiatics, the Mongoloids, or Chinamen, whatever you want to call them. He made them too. Said it was good. We're the servant race. We're supposed to get this place back. We're supposed to claim it again. It will be done. It has to be done. The bad guys know this. They read the Bible and know it better than we do. And they use it against us. And they're using it like a playbook. And they're modeling it, many things after that. And what they love in particular, and my hearing aids just shifted, and I'm recording from the hearing aids into this thing right now, at least as far as I can tell. We have to treat each other better, and we have to abide by the original 10 Commandments. We have to be Bible readers. It's the only way to access the mind of God, of Yahweh, Creator, Father. No one can read it for you. I will read it to you. It's the best I can do, especially for truck drivers, over-the-road truck drivers. Try to keep you guys going. But right now, we are under attack, and this is the final battle. There will be a civil war. We are already in World War III. It is atypical. And as far as the Ukraine goes, the war is over already. The Russians have won. It's just a mop-up right now. Don't believe the bullshit media. They lie. They're controlled by the evil ones. The best thing you could do is shut off your television, don't go to the movies, and even shut off talk radio. Everybody who's syndicated on talk radio will do their best to direct you away from the truth. And some of them are hit artists, specific hits. I'll tell you two of them, Glenn Beck, and who's that leprechaun guy? The one who writes the books. The tall guy, the big guy. Oh, heck. They both were on Fox for a while. One of them was to mock the birthers. So that's what his hit job was. That's what his brainwashing was under the CIA. They're Mockingbird guys. And the other one was to mock the 9/11 truthers. Now, you and I don't have to agree upon the crime, the nature of the crime, but we do have to agree a crime was committed. That you and I must agree upon. However, there's one more thing we have to agree upon. It was never solved. It remains unsolved. There was another crime during my lifetime. The Kennedy assassination. Oh, both of the Kennedy assassinations. Neither of which was ever solved. So tell me, why do we bother with a CIA or with an FBI when they can't solve the crimes? Our forefathers never would have allowed for those bodies to exist. Policing, policies, policing, law enforcement was reserved to the states, not to the federal government. That's the way it has to be again. The problem is all of these governments are fraudulent governments. They're all corporations. Our founding fathers knew the danger of corporations. They dealt with the East India Company. They dealt with the corporations the British Crown threw at us. They never would have allowed the existence of corporations, nor would they allow corporations to do business with anyone here, with any landed citizen of the states. And we used to be regarded as citizens of our states, not of our federal government. That federalization occurred as a result of that horrible civil war. There's so much to tell you. There's so much you have to know. But the most important things you need to know right now is that you are under attack, that the enemy runs this country. The same group that took down Russia from the Tsar is running this nation today. Their children are in charge. Their grandchildren are in charge. Communist Russia was run from a high-rise in Manhattan. If ever you needed to know what the communists were going to decide, you just sent somebody over to the high-rise in Manhattan and you get an answer, and the communists in Russia always went along with it. The bad guys were pointed out very well by our Messiah, by Yeshua. They were the money changers in the temples. They were the Edomites. They were the fathers of the children of the father of all lies, who is responsible for all the murders from Abel on to Zacharias, I believe it was, who was killed between the altar, murdered. So why white supremacists? They've given you the boogeyman so everybody can hate us. They made us the boogeyman. I don't see that. I mean, I see people that are kind of jerks, kind of white assholes. I see people that want to live and defend themselves and their own families and all that. Is there something wrong with that? I mean, we were told to coexist, but that's not permitted at this point. Now they're trying to take away our guns using a series of weird events which do not make sense. And there's the same level of confusion in those events that there was in the Kennedy assassination, that there was in 9/11. The same fog of war, if you will, to quote the brightest woman alive, Hillary Clinton, who seems to be made out of double Teflon coats, nothing sticks to her. If I was president, one of the first things I would do would be to apologize to Mr. Putin publicly, on air, and stand down. And I would give him free rein in the Ukraine. You jerks in the Pentagon who have been running that war behind the scenes have succeeded in genociding the Ukraine men. The Ukraine women will never forgive you for it. I don't think they should. They have beautiful women over there. And now they can't get husbands because more than 500 Ukrainian soldiers a day are getting killed. It's a meat grinder. And this bullshit that's in the news media that we just have to supply them with wonder weapons and they can win anything. Hell, we had wonder weapons in Vietnam, and did we win? No. Putin had reason to go into the Ukraine. He said that when the world was ready to ask him to present his reasons, he would do that. If I was president, I'd apologize. I'd give him free rein in the Ukraine, and I would tell everybody else to stand down and stay out, and I would beg Mr. Putin to make his case. Bring it before the World Court. Bring it before the United Nations. Bring it before the public on television. Make your case. Show us your evidence. I want to know the facts. I want to know the truth. I do know that it was not an illegal war. I know that the Minsk Accord, or whatever it was called, that the Ukraine entered into, they didn't live up to it. They violated it. So it was totally justified to go in. This incursion was totally justified. And right now, because of the way it's been handled and the way that our Pentagon has been ordering Zelensky to sacrifice those boys, I don't think Mr. Putin can afford to stop and talk again, because the last time he made a deal with the Ukrainians, they didn't uphold it. So they can't live up to their word. A bunch of liars and thieves. Forget it. The Russian people won't stand for it. They won't risk another war there. They're just going to take the whole thing, and the president ought to just give it to them and take his licks on this and understand that we can't be the bully of the planet anymore. That there was no interest for us to get involved over there. It's not even a NATO country. George Washington was right. He warned us against the party system, but these Republicans are just as corrupt, just as bought off, and just as bloodthirsty and nasty as the Democrats are. You know, I understand that the turtle, what's his real name? The head of the Senate, Mitch McConnell, didn't he have some heroin found on one of his ships, like 90 kilos one time? And what's his major interest in the Ukraine? Every drug company, every pharmaceutical company in the world, I believe, has its headquarters in Kiev, which is the right way to pronounce it, in case you're wondering. It's not Kiev, like you're peed off. It's Kiev. Kiev is where their headquarters are. The devil had his seat in Pergamon. He had a seat way back then. It's in the New Testament. That seat has been moved around a few times. I think they're getting ready to move it to the Azerbaijan. Or, can't remember the name of the town, name of the country, the capital of the country, but it looks like that's where they're going to be moving that to. It's been in Venice. It's been in Alsace-Lorraine. Well, I think it's been in one place in France. And then it's been in Switzerland for quite a bit. It's been in the city of London. We've got an amazing set of interlocking corporate boards that control the world order. It's not a new world order. This is the old world order from approximately 70,000 years ago that survived the Earth ages and been brought forward. It's being repackaged and marketed as a new world order, but it's not. It's the same old devils running the place that gave us hell before and caused hell for the inhabitants. Now, it's my belief that we Caucasoids were placed here to run it for the benefit of all, and we did that for a while. Then we lost our place. And I don't think that original sin was done by Adam or by Eve. I think it was done by Gadriel. I think the responsibility for it is on that fallen angel. We're dealing with a very shrewd enemy. And so they're doing their best to get all the rest of the inhabitants of the planet against us. And you can even talk to the Native Americans about their visions in which their white brothers were missing in the future. That's a possibility out of all of this. So folks, you better wake up. You're Israelite. You don't need to take them on by yourself. You need to read the Bible. Abide by the 10 Commandments. Study the Bible. Take the lessons from it. Ask Yahshua to guide you. Ask for that Holy Spirit. Ask for that anointing and that blessing. Become one of the saviors of the earth. I need you to understand they did the best they could to divide us ever since the garden. They did the best they can to divide us and keep us conquered. And they're doing a pretty good job. But you need to know it's the international bankers, the money changers, the Rothschilds and their ilk. And in case you're wondering, all of these big social media types are all related to the same group. They're all descendants of the fallen angels. I know it sounds kind of crazy. It sounds kind of wild. I think it was the most powerful DNA on the planet. I think it dominates. I think even when fallen angelic DNA gets into the Mongoloids, well, which is what it did, or into Caucasoids or into Negroids, I think it dominates. And so it's going to be really hard separating the wheat from the chaff. We have a long, hard road ahead of us. If you read the Bible, you'll realize we're right at the beginning of it, and it's going to get much worse. What were the two things that Yahshua told us to do? Hold your ground till I return. That's what he said. Be not deceived. That's what he said. He said it more than once. So those were his commands. We are to hold our ground, defend ourselves until he returns, and we're to do our best not to be deceived. Why? Because when we get deceived, they get us involved in these wars where we kill our brothers, where we kill each other. I lived in Germany as a child. I was afraid to go there when I was a little boy. Flew there in a plane. Made many stops. Took 24 hours to fly. Propeller-driven aircraft. I was scared. I didn't want to go there. I heard so many bad things about them. I saw those black and white videos from World War II with that rabid madman up there. I didn't realize they had altered those things at that point. Yeah, they altered them for pitch and speed and everything else. Make him look like he had distemper or something like that. By the way, he was one of them. Abraham Lincoln was one of them. As far as I can tell, Barack Obama was one of them. Sad to say, but looks like the last president was one of them too. And this current president, we don't have a president. He didn't win. He's not in there properly at all. Your 2,000 mules proves that. And you need to realize you can't let him stay there because he's destroying this country as fast as he can. There is no Green New Deal. There is no transition to green energy. It's a sucker punch to take us down, to weaken us nice and slowly. Take our food away. Take our medicine away. Take our guns away. Take everything away so that they can come in and clean us up. We need our militias. Militia. The only body mentioned as necessary in the entire Constitution were our militias. And they took those away from us in 1902. Yes, they've been working on a slow burn, slow boil, slow kill for a couple of centuries. And the last honest amendment was the original 13th Amendment, passed as a result of the War of 1812. All the other amendments are illegal, null and void. They've used that all, as well as creation of non-government organizations, non-profits, to undermine us. They've been very sly in this. So don't complain that you're losing your money. There is no money. You don't have any. They stole it all from us. They did it over a long period of time. And they're pretty much bankrupt. And they're busy robbing from us to pay for our demise. Their war on us. We fund it. So the best thing you could do would be to sit back and stop participating, to arm up, to be prepared to hold your ground, because they will be coming. There's no doubt about it. And they're making the final push now. They have to do it now, because they know that by this fall it's all over. They have no more opportunity to do this. At least I don't believe they'll have an opportunity. So they're going to ramp it up. They're going to do their best to get us to fight. They're going to do their best to get us to compromise. Remember, they never, ever solved those crimes. And they passed all of these laws, including the Patriot Act series, which was designed to take us down from within. And remember, the Tsar bailed us out during our Revolutionary War and during our Civil War. So we owe the Russians something. And it's our turn to bail the Russians out, in case you're wondering. And the land I come from, my home state, Alaska, will be the peace givers. Why? You didn't buy us. You leased Alaska for 100 years. The lease is up. We Alaskans are going to want our independence. We don't want to be part of this crazy stuff here. We'll tap that well that'll fill that pipeline of ours for 1.5 thousand years. 1,500 years that pipeline will be full. And we've got plenty of gold in the rivers that can be panned out. So we can get the mineral wealth. We just need to kick the Canadian corporations out. Kick the United States government out. And we'll have plenty of money to take care of ourselves. And we want all of the land back from that illegal corporation you call Washington, D.C., which is only supposed to rule that 10 square miles of swampland. They're evil through and through. All of those politicians can be replaced. We could pick the man off the streets and put him in office and get better government than what we're getting right now. You want me to fix it? I'll do it. I want you to replace your state governments with organic state governments. I want you to replace it all. Take over your county governments. Take over those. Take over your school boards. Save the children. Call up the state militias. Give them the authority that's vested in them in the Constitution. And let us have a fighting chance. Let us be able to defend ourselves against these hired thugs that Soros has put up amongst us. Against these intruders that they've been inviting in. We need our militias more than ever. Matter of fact, the first gubernatorial candidate in Arizona to make that announcement will be the governor. Men are going to flock to him. Money's going to go to him like a magnet. So all it takes is one man taking the stand on one item. Restore the militias. We will defend. Oh, and when you send the militias in, armed up, to walk the hallways of those horrible, horrible schools that exist today, they're horrible. But when you have the militias walk in their halls, you get rid of the school shootings. It's the only way to stop them. It's also the only way to get defense ready for what's coming. You got those red hordes here. You've got the enemy at the gates. You've got the enemy on the Supreme Court. You have the enemy in Congress, the enemy in the Senate, the enemy in the White House, the enemy in the State Department, the enemies in the FBI, the enemies in the ATF, the enemies in the CIA. Yes, they are our enemies. They spray us like bugs. You live in an ionized atmosphere. There's so much pollution, you better get the lavage system and use it once or twice a day. Use it for twice a day and you probably can avoid Alzheimer's because that's being caused by the damn aluminum they're spraying us with. They regard you and I as cockroaches and they want to exterminate us. Wake up, my brothers and sisters. It's not the white supremacists they're after. It's the Israelites they are after. They are the devil and his children.